All right. Hey, ladies. So we are in this series of communication, right? And fixing our communication with our husbands. And so I am going to give you 6 ways to stop the conversations turning into arguments. Let's stop these arguments, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 today, and I have my notes here, so that's why I'm looking down. I'm collecting everything, and it's been an amazing early morning, and I want to dive in before the day gets started. So here is number 1. Don't tell your husband what he feels. When you are in a conversation with your husband, sometimes it's natural for you to just assume that you know how he feels. And so you begin to say things and project things to him that can come off as offensive, like you're degrading them because you're projecting on them what they should feel, and you're projecting on them how they feel without allowing them to tell you what they feel. Sometimes we have to be careful with forgetting that our husband is an adult, that he is a grown man. He is not our grown child. He is an individual grown man who belongs to the Lord. He is allowed to have his own feelings. He's allowed to process his own feelings. And we should practice making sure that we give our husband that mutual respect that we would give to a coworker, or that we would give to somebody that we go to church with, that we would give to a leader, a pastor, or a boss, or a president, or anybody. Like, you should give honor to your husband in just being a human being. Like, it's fair and it's right to give all people respect. And sometimes I feel that in marriage, we lose just that general level of respect because we have become so familiar and so comfortable with each other and with our husbands. And we have to be careful because that is what's leading our communication to go south. And we begin to have these arguments because we forget that he's allowed to not feel how we feel. He is allowed to not agree with how we feel. He is allowed to have his own feelings, and we should seek to understand instead of projecting our assumed feelings. Like, it's okay to let your husband say what he feels and then believe what he says. Don't try to think like, oh, you're saying that, but really you feel XYZ because you do this and you say this and you act this way. So there's no way that you can be feeling like that. You're degrading his feelings and you're projecting to him that he's a dishonest person. Look, whatever he says he feels, take it for face value. That also lessens the pressure on you and lessens the stress on you. Like, hey, you know what? If that's how you feel, even though in your heart, right? In your heart, us as a wife, we might be thinking like, I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. I think you're maybe hiding a deeper feeling within you. I think there's something in there that needs to just be cultivated more so that you can actually explain better feelings. You might feel that way and you might be right, but do you want to be right or do you want to find resolution? Like, do you want to bulldoze your way and run with pride, or do you want to have peace and reconciliation? Like, you have to learn to choose your battles. What is the end result that you are aiming for? When you have that in your mind and talking to your husband, your fight and your rawr, like your press, it calms down because you're now being led with peace instead of being led with pride. Pride is you want to be right. You want him to know and agree with what you think. And you want to present the solution that makes sense. And you want it to make sense to him too. And so you're leading with telling him what he feels. And that's only going to lead to an argument. It's only going to lead to him either being discouraged or being disinterested or being defensive because you're presenting to him as if he's not capable of having his own feelings. So be careful of telling him what he feels. Check your interpretation with him. So when you're talking to one another, you should say things like, so what I am understanding you're saying is XYZ. And you allow him to either confirm or to deny. Because he might say, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and then you guys are able to come to an understanding of each other instead of being led with assumptions. So make sure that you are checking your interpretation of his actions, checking your interpretation of his statements. Don't just run with assumptions. Ask. Let there be clarifications. Don't tell him what he feels. All right? Number 2, ask if your opinion is wanted. Now, this is something that this whole new culture is not down with because you feel like asking for permission. No, let me say this. We don't know how to handle rejection, mainly because we don't know how to properly identify rejection. And we live in a world right now that if you don't agree with me, then you're my enemy and I need to cancel you. That's the world we're living in. It's totally evil, totally ignorant. It's just the most foolish thought process, but that's what's going on in the world. And so we have to make sure that us as an individual, that you as a wife, aren't subconsciously subscribing to that type of a thinking. Because as you're scrolling, you're in those feeds and you're being fed. And so you become what you're eating, and you might not realize that you're adapting to that thought process because it's not totally evident. But you might notice in your ways and in your perceptions and in your responses to your husband that you might be doing the same thing, where you're forcing your opinion and you're forcing your advice because you think that it should be wanted. You think that it should be received. And then you feel that if he doesn't want your opinion, that all of a sudden you're rejected, you feel offended, and now you feel that he doesn't agree with you. And so here's an argument. Be secure enough in yourself that it's okay if your opinion is not wanted and it doesn't take from you. Like, you know who you are. You know your qualities, you know your value, you know who God says you are. And when you can stand firm in that, it's so hard to be offended. It's so, like, when you know who you are, when you know who God is and who he has called you to be, when you are in just a beautiful union with God, that you feel secure in him, other people's validation is not necessary for you to thrive. Now, when it comes to having that mindset with your husband, what you can have is, I'm so secure in who I am in God that if you don't want to hear my opinion, I still love you. I still know that I'm a value to you as a wife, but I won't get offended at that. I will be okay with you not wanting my opinion in this, but I want to know and I want to ask. So it's not weakness for you to ask, can I give you my opinion on that? That's not weakness. That's actually strength. And it's actually helping you not to be so vulnerable. Because a lot of times when you just lash out your opinion, you now have opened yourself up to such a vulnerable place, because your husband can easily turn around and be like, well, I didn't ask you that. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, we're not doing that. And then you kick up to being frustrated and angry and taken back. And you're like, whoa. And that causes an argument. So be so secure that you still are loving and you're still able to be a safe place for your husband, even if he does not want your opinion. That's okay. You're still validated by God. You still are a huge asset to your husband's life. Don't now think that just because he doesn't want your opinion, that now it's woe is me, and I'm now just contemplating who I am as a person, and oh my goodness, and now I'm sad, and now I'm upset, and now my emotions are all over the place. I'm secure enough in who I am in God to be okay that you don't want my opinion, and I still love you, and I'm still going to be the best wife to you that I can be because I'm confident in me. And I'm going to pray that God will give you clear wisdom. That's the type of wife you got to be. You got to be confident in who you are. So ask when you're in a hyped up, high alert type of a conversation. Ask your husband, even if your husband is sharing things with you about his day, maybe he's sharing something with you about work. Be careful with, well, you should have da-da-da-da-da. Well, you should have said this. Or even if he's talking to you about something with his friends or something with his family, it's so easy and it's so natural to just say, well, you should have said, or you might say, well, I would have done it like this, or I would have said this. And it's just so natural to respond that way. But that can actually shut your husband down from wanting to talk to you. That can actually also shut down the conversation from him wanting to hear what your input. So listen, right? Like we talked about in the first video, the part 1, we talked about, learning how to be a better listener. So in you practicing that, listen to his thoughts, listen to the situation he's talking about, and first ask, so, wow, what did you do about that? Or what did you think about what did you think that you were supposed to do? Or what was your response? What do you think is a solution to that? Let him share his thoughts of a solution. Let him lead with that. And then you say, oh, okay, do you want to hear how I would handle it? Or do you want some advice? Or do you want to know what I think about that? Or can I share with you? Or do you mind me giving a little input of just what I think? And just leave it out there. But present it as don't present it as if your opinion is law and your perspective of it is law. He is an adult. You can offer advice, right? You can offer advice, offer help in the form of advice, not in the form of sentencing and judgment and definite law. Be soft, be gentle. That is what opens his heart up to you as a woman. That is how men are naturally made. I don't care how society has shifted them. Their original creation, how they were meant to be from the jump, is to need you, but to be a covering to you and to be soft towards you. That's why, look, when you read 1 Peter 3, what it tells the husband, like it literally tells the husband that how you treat your wife depends on if your prayers will be answered. Like the Lord will not listen to their prayers if they are not doing you right and treating you right. So being a husband is very, very important. But that doesn't mean that we should make it hard for them to do their part. It's already hard for them. We should be doing what we can to make sure that they feel safe with us and they feel supported by us. And we're soft and we're gentle towards them, which makes it easy for them to want to lead better. It makes it easy for them to want to provide more and want to be that strong masculine man and provider that God has originally created every man to be. Every male spirit is of the Spirit of God originally. Now, whatever happens in life that the enemy tries to come and switch things around, thank God for Jesus, that we're able to be transformed back into the original state that God wants us to be in. Thank God for Jesus. But some husbands need a little help. Some wives need a little help, and we should help one another. So here we talk about the wife role. So for us, learning to be that soft, safe place and not bull-guarding our opinion on our husband will absolutely help the arguments to stop. And number 3, refuse to adopt perceived conclusions. So don't be so confined to your own vision of the situation before you approach your husband about it. Don't already have this preconceived conclusion. Like, you already know what the deal is. You already know why he did it. You already know what should have been done. You already know the outcome that needs to happen. You already have these conclusions set up of why he acted this way, why he said this way, why the situation went this way. You already know. You already got the answers. You already got it figured out. And so you have a definite conclusion before you even bring the situation to an understanding, before you even bring it to your husband for an understanding. You already have it figured out in your head. How can you lead somebody who is not willing to follow? And I mean that from the husband's perspective. We naturally want our husbands to lead and be providers. And how can you do that? How can he do that if we're not willing to follow? How can he be that lead if we're already set in our ways, set in our conclusions, and it's like, boom, wham, this is what it is? What can he do with that? What can he do with that? So I'm praying and I'm asking that God will help us strong-willed wives to trust God's will more than our own, so that we're able to be better at communication with our husband. So these are just the first 3. I will have the next 3 in the next video. And so be sure that you subscribe, that you like, that you share. All of the information, all the things that you need to know are in the links below, and I will see you in the next video.